All right, we are live. I'm going to do a little. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Loving this.
Experience the world's largest celebration of online video with VidCon now.
This is going to be never-before-seen content.
It's all the things you love about VidCon, from the comfort of your own home for free.
That's me!
Head to vidcon.com for the agenda and register today. Experience the world's largest celebration of online video with VidCon now.
This is going to be never-before-seen content.
It's all the things you love about VidCon, from the comfort of your own home for free.
That's me!
Head to vidcon.com for the agenda and register today.
All right. Hello. My name is Mike Russell. Do come into my studio. Come into my studio as we are here for the next 30 minutes or so to talk about podcasting. And I'm really excited to do this. It's all about making a really good impression with your audio. So this is the most important thing to get right. It's getting the gear right, getting the editing right so you can make your life easy and make a great sounding podcast. Also, at the end of this session, I am going to be leaving some time for some Q&A. So if you want to get in there and ask questions about microphones, connections, editing, anything to do with getting started with your very first podcast, I am here to do that in the live chat as well. So audio is everything. If you have rubbish audio, no one is going to listen to your podcast. There are tons of good podcasts out there. And of course, the directory is increasing every day across iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else. It's getting bigger and bigger, Google Podcasts. So you really need to have good audio to not only compete with the big broadcasters like NBC, the BBC, the ABC, any national broadcaster in any region of the world, but you just really want to sound good. So how can you do that? Well, I'm going to hopefully take you through a few ideas, a few things you can do, a few ways you can make the room you're in, because of course it might not be a room like this with sound treatment, but I can give you some ideas on sound treatment and bits like that. So let's get started. And first of all, the very first thing I would like to talk about is microphones. After talking about Mike, because you're saying, who are you, Mike, to talk about podcasting in this session? So I'm Mike from Music Radio Creative. We're an audio production company. We work with podcasters, have been working since 2004. I've been a YouTuber actually since 2009. Love YouTube, and podcasting as well since 2012. So that gives you a little idea of who I am and my background and why I'm qualified to talk about podcasting. And let's start with the big headline. Microphones, of course. You probably already noticed, if you're eagle-eyed, that I am using a Shure SM7B. This is a professional vocal microphone, but let's start from the very beginning. Seeing as this is the beginner's guide to all you need to know to start a podcast, let's look at something you can pick up a little bit cheaper than this one that comes in at usually $350 in the US. You can spend just over $99 and get yourself a really good USB microphone like this one, or like this one. This is a very popular choice. You might have seen this on a few podcasting desks yourself. These mics right here are USB microphones, and they are the easiest thing to use to start podcasting. We'll talk a little bit more about how they work and how you can get the best sound out of them in just a moment. But USB microphones are the best way to get started because they plug straight into your computer and you can start recording straight away. So it's a pretty cool start. Now, later on, I'm going to talk about XLR microphones. Don't get too confused by the terms yet. Just know that this here is a USB cable. I'm sure you've all seen a USB cable. And this will be on the end connector of certainly these two mics and other USB mics you might find when you're shopping around. But later on, I might advise you to up your game and use an XLR lead. It looks a bit like this. It's got 3 pins like that. Well, 3 slots for pins. And the other side has 3 pins. There you go. So XLR mics are definitely the way to go if you want to get a really pro sound, but USB will get you started. So let's dive a little bit into that, a little bit further, and just figure out what I've just said. Let's do a rewind and look at USB versus XLR. Okay, so USB is cheaper and easier. That's why I got these two options here in front of me. They also plug right into the computer. We've established that. But now I'm going to talk to you about XLR microphones and why you might want to go one step further and why is USB just not good enough? Well, XLR is my recommendation for a pro setup. So you start recording, you like what you're doing, you want to get a better sound, you need an XLR connection. It also allows the easy recording of multiple guests. So there's more than one of you in a studio, there's two of you in a studio, or three, you can connect all to the same device that runs into your computer and have no problems with XLR. USB, it's a little trickier. And of course, you need that audio interface. And don't worry, we'll get onto that in a moment. But before we do, let's talk about microphones and their various different types. So you've got a microphone like this. You might have seen this by people singing karaoke or people announcing on stage. If you've ever been to VidCon in person, I know it's virtual this year, you've probably seen the host or the speaker using a mic like this to talk on stage. It's a dynamic mic, and I recommend dynamic microphones to get started. Dynamic is a great choice because it really helps with noise and echo in your room. So if you're working in a room that's maybe not professionally sound treated, like these tiles behind me, then a dynamic microphone will be very forgiving and make you sound pretty good without too much hassle of changing the whole setup of your room. You are a beginner, right? You're on the beginner's guide. So yes, you don't want to have all that craziness to deal with. A microphone that's dynamic will help you with that. But you can go one step up after you get your USB or XLR choice sorted out and grab a condenser microphone. They sound better, but they're very sensitive. And they're sensitive because they're used at radio stations and professional broadcast environments. Here's one. Just ripped it out of its rack. This is a condenser microphone. It looks like this. It has a few buttons and bits on there. You will get a better sound out of a condenser microphone. And in general, the more you pay, the better you get in terms of sound. Is that really true? Like, if I spend $350 on a microphone, is it going to sound better than a Yeti or an AKG Lyra? Let's put that to the test. This is a $350 mic. This is 3 times more. This is $1,000. You tell me right now, if you're watching this live, as I switch, this is the $350 microphone, and this is the $1,000 microphone. Can you tell a difference between $350 and $1,000? I don't know. Let me know. Is it, is it a lot better? I don't know. But generally, you tend to get a cleaner sound, a crisper sound, but you do need the right sound treatment, and we'll get onto that in just a moment. So you can improve an XLR mic with a preamp. And let's look at preamps in just a moment because they are really, really helpful. But hopefully so far, I've given you some idea on microphones you can use to start recording your first podcast. So it might be one of these USB choices. It might be an XLR connected dynamic or condenser microphone. It could be anything like that. And I'll show you, if you want to go to XLR, how you can connect them. But of course, when you're recording your podcast, you can't hear anything unless you have headphones. So what would be my recommendations on good headphones? Well, you definitely need to monitor your audio when you're recording a podcast and make sure it sounds decent. Now, the headphones I use are professional studio headphones. I find these great. These are great because I do a lot of editing and mixing, so they give me that real crisp sound. I can really hear everything that's going on. These are Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros. You'll see a lot of musicians and singers using them. But anything will do. If you've got some Apple EarPods, you can use those. Any wireless headphones, the Google Pixel Buds as well will work. I think Amazon make them now as well. I've got this set from JBL. They're just like Bluetooth, and they connect via Bluetooth either to your phone or your computer that you're using to record. So anything like that. And usually if you're doing a podcast that might have some video element to it, of course this is VidCon, then something more discreet like these in-ear headphones are going to be absolutely fantastic. You can still monitor the audio, and I really recommend that you monitor the audio when you're recording your first podcast. And then you can pick up things like plosives. So you're popping on the microphone. Are you on the microphone or are you off the microphone and sounding terrible? And that kind of stuff. And also that applies to your guests as well. How are they sounding? Is everything at the same volume level? Very important to figure that stuff all out. So that is where headphones will really help you out, or earphones if you prefer. Let's move on to audio interface. This is a way to get the audio signal from your XLR microphone, this thing here, into your computer. Because, of course, as we learned at the start, you can plug USBs directly into a computer, into your MacBook, into your laptop, into your PC, and start recording in your audio editor of choice. But if you have one of these with, as we could see just earlier on in the presentation, let's see if I can get that into focus, with the XLR connector, that is not going to plug into a normal computer. So this is where the audio interface comes into play. Let's talk a little bit about audio interfaces. So XLR mics need an audio interface in order to connect. The audio interface plugs into your computer via USB. And then you can monitor podcasts with headphones plugged into that audio interface. And most also have multiple inputs, allowing you to have more than one microphone connected. So for instance, really popular one is this 2i2 from Focusrite. And as you can see, it has two XLR connectors on the front. So you can plug in microphone number 1, microphone number 2. And when you're working in your audio editor, you can separate those channels out and create two separate tracks in your recording. So if you need to edit something out, or if your guest is coughing wildly while you're trying to say something, you can edit out loads of track 2 and keep lots of track 1 in. You can also change the volume on here, change the monitor volume. It's got a big knob there for your speakers, headphone input, so everything is there. If you want to go a step beyond just an audio interface, you might want to get yourself a little mini mixer. I quite like these Soundcraft mixers. This is the Notepad 5. And again, it's got one input there for a microphone, another input there for a microphone. You can even plug in something like a tablet and play jingles if you want. And these are little gain controls here, so volume controls to change the volume of your input. So you could easily have you and a guest and something else plugged in here, or computer feedback, computer audio. So if you're bringing in a guest from online, that is a really good thing to consider. So far, we have covered microphones, microphone types, headphones, audio interfaces. I know this is already a lot for you to take in. That's why I'm asking you to get your question in mind right now, if you're watching this live, if you're here with me right now, and post some of the questions in the chat, because I'll be going through and trying to answer as many as I can at the end of my session in around about 15 minutes from now. So be thinking of a question, pop it in the chat right now, wherever you're watching, and we'll get to that very shortly indeed. So once you've got all of that sorted out, it's time to get on to the idea of a microphone preamp. Now, don't be too scared. This is why I recommend XLR mics over USB. With USB, you plug it straight into the computer, you record it as is. With an XLR, you have the option of using a little piece of hardware, a little microphone preamp, a processor, a little box that changes your sound and makes it better in real time. So rather than having to do all the post-editing afterwards, like adding little effects to your voice to make it sound better, this box will do everything for you. And actually right now, as I give this presentation, this microphone here is running through a preamp and processor. So let me show you. If I actually cut to the wide view here, you'll see all my preamps here, but I have just one that I use and recommend if you're using XLR in your podcasting setup, and that is this one down here. You can just about see it where I'm pointing to, the DBX286S. It essentially compresses your audio so that it keeps the volume levels very similar rather than going up and down, so really loud and really quiet, and just makes it sound uniform, which you need for your podcast listener. Because if they're listening in the gym, or if they're listening in the car or on the move, and everything around them is noisy, when you get really quiet, they won't be able to hear what you're saying. So compression evens that out. It's also got some equalization, and it's got a noise gate. Now, a noise gate is super important because when your volume falls below a certain level, you will actually find that the gate closes. So when the gate closes, no audio will get through. And when you speak above a certain volume level, the gate opens and let you through. So, for instance, right now I've got a gate set up. If I go silent, absolutely no audio, which is pretty cool. So that can help you, particularly if you're in a noisy environment, an echoey room with lots of reverb and no sound treatment. So definitely look into something like that. Just to give you an example right now, I can actually bypass this microphone preamp, the DBX286S. And this is an idea of how I sound without the DBX286S. A lot more breathy. Can you hear the breath? That's the noise gate not kicking in. And then with the noise gate, you will hear that all my breaths fall below that threshold and are gated out. So it's just a smoother experience. Definitely something worth to look into. You can see Cindy's saying now, she's in the audience watching live right now, and she says, wow, that was really good. Noise gate, highly recommend it. Yes, you can do it in post-editing, of course, but I recommend getting a box like this to sort out your sound and make it really, really cool, okay? So you've got audio interface there and some of the reasons why you might want to consider that. And, of course, you can't run a USB mic through a mic preamp, but you can XLR. That's why I really recommend XLR for good quality podcasting. It'll make you sound better, compress the loud parts of your speech and make you sound a uniform level in terms of loudness. EQ to improve your sound, add a little bit of extra frequencies to the bass and the high end. And of course, that noise gate to filter out background noise. All super important. Okay, let's talk about recording. Hitting that button and recording your very first podcast. Now, obviously, there are many ways to do this. I would certainly recommend using a computer and an audio editor of your choice. Many podcasters, when they're getting started, will use software like Audacity, simply because it's free, it's open source, it's easy to download. You go to teamaudacity.org, download the file, and within seconds, you've got an audio recorder on your computer that will record all the sound. Really, really easy. It's free. It's a perfect way to get started. I use and recommend Adobe Audition. In fact, in a second, I'll hop into Adobe Audition and show you a bit of editing and recording and post-processing. But really, those are your options. There are plenty of other audio editors out there, so make sure to do your research and get the one that makes sense for you, whether it's a free one to get started with, or whether it's one that you pay for on a monthly basis or just buy outright once, whatever works for you. Remember, of course, if you get paid software, you're likely to get more efficiency, more time saving. As you get into podcasting, you want to spend less time in the software and more time actually creating. And that takes me nicely onto another idea, actually something sitting over here. If you don't want to use a computer at all to record, you will want to get something that's known as a digital audio recorder. Essentially one of these. Now you can get anything. You can get the Tascam do them. Zoom makes some of these great digital audio recorders. And essentially it has two mics. So you'll see a lot of people running around capturing noise and sound effects for their YouTube videos. But it also actually is very handy because as you'll see from the back of this box here, it has an input for 2 XLRs, okay? Again, as we could see on our audio interfaces earlier on, you can plug 2 XLR inputs into this digital audio recorder. And that's really good because you can plug your microphone straight into that. It actually has an SD card input. You can record straight onto SD card, therefore cutting out your computer entirely and recording. This is great for on the move. I mean, literally, you can bring 2 microphones, 2 XLR cables, one of these, and you've got a podcast set up on the move. Very, very straightforward for your beginner podcasting wherever you happen to be. Even if you are recording into a computer, if you can afford it, I'd recommend setting it up so you can also record into one of these digital audio recorders. It's just a nice fail-safe, a nice backup in case for whatever reason your computer crashes, there's a power failure, and you've just done your best podcast episode with the guest you were hunting down for years and years. And then you have to say to them, can we record that again? Because my computer crashed. So yeah, nice fail-safe and backup. So hopefully, so far in this session, it's given you a really good idea on some of the things you can be doing. We've spoken about microphones. We've spoken about headphones. Obviously, USB and XLR microphones, microphone types, headphones. We've looked at audio interfaces. We've also looked at recording, but we're not quite done there yet because there is one more thing I want to show you. If you want all the bells and whistles and you want it to be portable, this piece of kit is something that I use quite a lot. Well, I did use quite a lot when I was able to move around the world. Obviously, due to the current state of the world, not doing that much at the moment. But this is sitting here in my studio, and I do use it from time to time. It's the Rodecaster Pro. This was made specifically for podcasters. And as you'll see on the back, it's got 4 XLR inputs for up to 4 microphones. 4 inputs there, or outputs, I should say, for headphones, so you can have lots of guests listening, speaker outputs, and other stuff, USB connection to your computer, SD card to record to. It's kind of like everything I've just shown you in one, apart from the microphones. You still have to buy the microphones. But it's very good. It's even got a preamp and processor built into each mic channel. So yeah, definitely another thing to consider. Have I, the big dogs, indeed, little Miss Carla. Thank you for saying that there in the chat. I will be taking some of your questions and answers. Well, not the answers, the questions, I think. Yes. I'll take some of your questions at the end of this session. So post them now, because in around about 10 minutes, I will be doing a round of questions. And I'll say as long as you need me to. I mean, I'm really happy to stick around for as long as VidCon will have me on stage to help you out right now with your podcasting questions and queries. So we kind of covered a little bit of everything here, and I've kind of overwhelmed you now with equipment and ways that you can be doing that. What about, and I get asked this quite a bit, that's all very well. So we get it, one USB mic plugging into a computer. That's great for a starting podcast, with one person speaking as a monologue. And then you can have the audio interface with two mics plugged in, and that's great if you've got yourself and a guest sitting opposite each other on a desk. And then you've got the roadcaster if you want up to 4 people in the same room, that kind of thing. That's brilliant. But what about remote guests? So you want to bring someone in to talk to them. Now, all kinds of apps are used. I mean, since the lockdown and this world pandemic we've been going through, a lot of people have been using Zoom, and I like Zoom for meetings and online calls. I quite like Skype. I also like to use Google Meet as well. I do a lot of Google Meets to talk to clients and other people. But the audio quality is rubbish on all of those services. I'm sorry, Zoom. I'm sorry, Skype. I'm sorry, Google. But it's just the product is not designed for recording high-quality podcasts. Yes, the product is designed and fulfills an amazing purpose for online meetings, but not for podcasting. So let me give you some ideas on how you can bring in remote guests if you can't use any of those services. And these are 2 of my recommendations. I've used them both, so I recommend them with confidence. Zencastr. That's Zencastr without the E at the end. It's Zencastr, very trendy. And there's also Squadcast. So if you go and look them up in your favorite search engine and give them a go, what they will do is they will allow you to bring in a remote guest, and there's no messing about. So there's no go and download Skype and set up your audio interface and make sure it's working. It's just you give the other person a web URL. It's as simple as that. You just say, go to zencastr.com/myawesomepodcast episode 1. Or you just send that to them on email. And then they go there and you go there. And then you both appear in this little chat box online. And it's high quality audio. I mean, both of these companies focus on HD audio. That's why I can recommend them confidently. So it's kind of almost like they're in the room with you. Zencastr and Squadcast, really good stuff. And what I really like about these services is it won't just like make a recording of the online call, and then if it drops out and sounds rubbish, you've got that forever in your podcast. What it'll do, it records 2 separate tracks. It'll record you as the podcast host and your guest at their end. And then at the end of the show, at the end of the recording, it will upload both parts to the internet, and then you can download both parts and bring them into your audio editor. So you are guaranteed top quality audio. And I can already see a question. Sorry, a lot of people asking, is it free? Is it free? Is it free? Yes, both of those, I believe, have free plans for you to get started. But of course, if you get serious about podcasting, they have other plans. As your passion for podcasting grows and you start to do more and more podcasting, you're probably going to want to look into paying for a little plan so you can do more recording and have more features. But yes, to get started, as far as I'm aware, certainly when I used both of those services, they did have a free plan. So yes, do get more questions in because I'll be answering them very shortly in about 5 minutes now at the end of this presentation. Okay, this is great. We've looked at gear. We've looked a little bit at recording. We've looked a little bit at remote guests. We've looked at all of this. We didn't talk enough about sound treatment, did we? So as you can see over there, believe it or not, right there, that thing that looks like a weird alien spacecraft on the wall, that is actually a sound acoustic tile, and it's used to diffuse and reflect the audio in this room. Also, I don't know if you can see behind the lights over there, there's another tile on the roof. And behind me, of course, these are sound acoustic tiles. If I move out the way, maybe the camera focused on those tiles. They're really cool. They cost quite a bit of cash though. So if you want to get started easily, get the foam tiles. You can get them from, most retailers, foam tiles, big bags of them, big boxes. Just careful how you put them on the wall, because I had an experience with gluing those tiles to the wall, and I literally shredded to bits one of the rooms in my house. So definitely don't glue them to the wall. Look for stuff like command strips, or even I think I've heard of people stapling them into the wall. I'm not sure if that's good or not. But anyway, any sound treatment is better than no sound treatment. Get them in strategic places like behind you. I've actually found in my experience having sound tiles on the roof really helps. And of course, having something on the floor, just make sure you're not on a concrete floor or a lino floor or anything like that. Really, you want carpet, and the thicker the better. You can't do that. Go out and grab yourself a rug from, Home Depot, or if you're in the UK as I am, B&Q. Do they do rugs? I don't know. Anyway, your local rug retailer and put it on the floor, and it'll make it sound better. Also, if you're in a room with lots of windows or French doors or something like that, go ahead and hang up thick curtains. Glass is not the friend of audio. Glass is a reflector of audio. It'll make you sound rubbish. And yes, pillows do work as well sometimes. In fact, here at Music Radio Creative, we work with a lot of voiceover artists, and I have been known to catch a few who are on the move, traveling, to throw the bed sheets from the hotel room over their head as they record. And even that works well. But I think doing a 30-minute podcast with a bedsheet over your head might be stretching it a little bit. You'd be sweating by the end of that show. So there you go. So that is a look at all of that. Now, I'm conscious of your time. I know we're getting towards the end of the session, and I want to leave space for questions. So just before I do, I just want to roll into, we've done that. We've done remote guests, really cool services, editing. And let's very quickly hop over to my audio editor of choice, which is Adobe Audition. Very quickly, I'm just going to record a quick podcast, just show you a few features in here. If you're really interested in editing audio and playing with Adobe Audition, then you can check out my YouTube channel, and I'll tell you what that is at the end of this session in about 2 or 3 minutes. But I just want to give you a brief overview of what's possible. So this is Adobe Audition. It's got a record button down here, and I can just record like this. So hit record, click OK. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and this is my very first podcast episode. I'm currently live and doing a presentation for VidCon on everything you need to get started with your first podcast, if you're a beginner. Let's stop that. And then I can go into something called multi-track here, and let's call this first podcast, and that will do nicely. And then you'll see here, I've got lots of different tracks that I can either record onto, but let's just disable them and pull in this track here. So let's pop that in. Let's add in a new audio track, and we'll call this one music. And then what I can do is I can actually go ahead and listen to myself. Hello, this is Mike Russell. And then I can go ahead, pull in some music here. This could be my podcast intro, and I can just line this up. So multi-track is very good for getting things into order. And then I can play a bit of music. Hello. And then as I start to speak, I can actually just draw on this yellow line, a little fade out here on the music. So let's do that and bring that down like that, and it'll all fade out. Hello, this is Mike Russell, and this is my very first. So you see, it's really as simple as that. I can trim things in like that. I can cut out breaths if I'm not a fan of breaths in the podcast. And of course, I can put in as many tracks as I want. So if I want to put in another mono audio track and record another guest or someone on another track, I can do that. Or if I've used Zencastr or Squadcast to record my podcast, I can go ahead, bring in 2 tracks there and edit both tracks. I can even record directly into multi-track here by selecting my microphone and then hitting record. And then I can say, put my cursor at the end and hit record. Oh, yes. And one more thing. I just wanted to add in that this has been a fantastic session. I've really enjoyed doing it. And there you go. As you can see there it is. I can make it louder or quieter. I can edit parts out. And then, of course, when I'm finished, I can mix it all down and have it ready to upload to my podcast host of choice. as a real life podcast. Now, I know this is part one of a series that VidCon now is continuing over the summer, so make sure you check out the other sessions on podcasting on VidCon now. Register for them, show up for them, because not only will you learn just how to get started with podcasting and mix something down, as I've just done here on the screen, but you'll also learn, no doubt, how to monetize and, grow your audience, which is a really important thing as well. So file, save as, first podcast, and instead of wave, I'll save that as an MP3 file, and away you go. That's kind of ready to upload. So we covered quite a bit in 30 minutes, didn't we? We spoke about equipment like microphones, headphones, audio interfaces, microphone preamps, recording using either your computer or a digital audio recorder, pulling in remote guests, editing in things like Adobe Audition or Audacity, and so much more. It has been so much fun doing the beginner's guide to everything you need to start your first podcast. And if you'd like to check me out further, then go to youtube.com/music radio creative. I'd really love you to go there and subscribe, because I have weekly tutorials on editing audio, and hopefully you can learn a lot. If you really enjoyed this, by the way, go ahead and tweet me. My tweet handle is @IMikeRussell, and I am around to answer your questions right now in the chat. I know behind the scenes, we got some wonderful people who have made this live session happen, beavering away. So I can see some comments coming in from behind the scenes. So yes, excellent, fantastic. I think I am good to go with the questions. What I'm going to do, in lieu of any other way to do this, I am just simply going to scroll through the live chat on YouTube right now and maybe pick some questions out. Unless you want to do it another way, and I'm kind of looking over at my producer over here. We can run longer. Awesome. I can see that comment. So yeah, if producer, tell me if you're happy for me to just fish through for comments from the YouTube chat, then I'll do that. Otherwise, if you want to hand me some stuff on the chat box over here, totally works. Okay. Awesome. This is actually my favorite part of doing a presentation. It's answering your questions. So feel free to ask some questions. I'm just going to filter through, and I'm literally going to read an answer as we go. So I'm looking up on the screen at the live stream here and picking stuff out. And I'm going to go kind of from latest backwards. Okay. So Chew on This Media has said, best way to get podcast sponsors. And now I believe that part 2 of the podcasting session that you're going to get from VidCon now is all about monetization. And I believe the speakers there from Acast, maybe Spotify as well. I'm not entirely sure, but I definitely saw Acast on the lineup there. So I really, rather than talking to me about that, I can give you some ideas. I would really recommend to go and watch part 2 of this series with VidCon now, because there's going to be some awesome information there for you. But if you want to get sponsors, really the first thing you should be concerned about if you're just starting is getting at least 7 episodes out there, or 10 if you can. So record them in advance, get your topic titles so that you're all ready to go. Build up a loyal audience, and then once you have that audience and you're growing that audience, the sponsors will come. It's a bit like YouTube. It's the same with YouTube. It's persistence, it's consistency, it's constantly doing your best, and the sponsors will come. Don't be too stressed about getting sponsors at first. I believe some of the big podcast providers like Acast give you options to monetize. I know Spreaker does as well. That's another podcast host service. So hopefully, Chew on This Media, this gives you an idea. But stick around with VidCon now, because they've got more coming up on that. Megan, do specific microphones work better with specific computers or cameras? What would you recommend for podcasts? In general, microphones generally work. XLRs, if plugged into an audio interface, you'll have no problem at all, because the audio interface does the heavy lifting to get your microphone into your computer. If you're using a USB microphone, it might be driver dependent, but most USB microphone manufacturers are pretty on top of it, and they'll work with Mac and PC. So you haven't really got to worry. You can pick anything off the shelf. If it's USB, just check the back of the box, because usually somewhere on the box it'll say, yes, on the box it'll say works with PC and Mac. So obviously, if you're going to buy a USB microphone and it says PC only, then be careful if you're a Mac user. But usually they work with everything. They're pretty good. They want the biggest user base possible, right? Do excuse me if I miss out some of the questions. I'm not doing that deliberately. I'm literally skimming through these and just picking out what comes to my eye. So, Little Miss Carla, do you recommend planning out episodes with a guest before recording their episode? No. I absolutely don't. Now, others may differ on this, but I have a very strong opinion on this. I don't think you should do that, particularly if your guest is not used to being on a podcast and not used to being interviewed, because I think it'll just stress them out. It's like, let's talk about this, and the other. It's just, maybe send them some bullet points in advance. That often helps. Just say, listen, we're going to cover these points. We're going to cover, your history in doing this. We're going to cover why you do this. And then I'm going to ask you some questions that specifically relate to this aspect of your work. And that's about enough. Now, it's a different story if you're working with a co-host, so someone you work with every week. Then I do recommend planning things out because it really helps you to stay on topic and focused rather than rambling on about something, for 60 minutes when it could be a 20-minute episode. Basically, my big tip for you, Carla, is bullet points, and work from them. Do not script the whole episode out. It won't sound natural. Right. What else have we got here? Thank you, Isabella. Isabella's my other half, and she's watching right now. That's so amazing. Thank you so much for mentioning that I have a great YouTube channel. That's very kind of you. And do go over and subscribe. That'd be amazing. What else have we got? The biggest thing to keep in mind is not all cameras and computers have the ports you need for certain mics. That is true, particularly cameras that you're using to shoot, like DSLR or mirrorless cameras. You might need to grab something to plug in to convert, like an audio interface for your camera. Okay, Daniel's asking, if you have an extreme amount of egg cartons saved, oh gosh, I can see where this is going. If you have an extreme amount of egg cartons saved, do you think that would be good to put on the wall with Tic Tacs behind the mic, or do you need to coat the whole room? Daniel. As we would say here in the UK, are you taking the mick? Serious. Egg cartons and Tic Tacs. Am I supposed to answer that? Go for it. Cover your whole room. That would be my advice. Paint it black, as the Rolling Stones once said. If that's your look, fine. No worries. Sorry, that might have been a serious question. What else have we got? Okay. Question. Thank you, actually. Some people have been really helpful in the chat and actually posted the word question before they ask a question. Socratica says, more about content. Any advice about common mistakes? Well, picking up on your verbal tics is the first thing. So a lot of people say, or you know what I mean, or absolutely brilliant. That's one of mine. I say that all the time. That's absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. So my big tip, first of all, is to record your podcast. Obviously, you'll do that, but listen to your own podcast episode so you can pick up on those things and improve them. Another thing is, don't worry about silence. Silence is often good, and it helps people to really focus on what you're saying. So don't feel like you have to rush through things. Often we feel under that pressure. I often feel under that pressure when I'm doing a live, particularly when I'm doing something live. But sometimes your audience just needs space. Right, let's have a look. What have we got? So many cool comments. Thank you, everyone who's watching this live, for chipping in and asking questions and just generally commenting. Right. Oh, question from Topless Topics. That's a nice name. What is the best platform for interviewing others who are not very tech savvy? How can I get the cleanest audio while having to ask the least amount of work on their end? Well, you got it already. Zencaster or Squadcast are going to be it. You literally just send them a URL and they go there and hopefully everything works. Usually you just go in the Chrome browser, you tell them to allow audio. Usually this little notification comes up, allow audio, and it should just work. Other than that, let's have a think. In-browser based solutions are really the best now. That's going to be the least barrier to entry. So I'm going to stick by that answer. Topless Topics. What else have we got here? Okay, let's scroll through. Best apps for recording virtually. Oh, goodness me. Okay. What you mean if you haven't got a digital audio recorder and you haven't got a computer, but you're literally using like a phone? Make it from that speaker. I'll type really good ones. Studio. Just put it in. It's Spreaker somewhere. Friendly name. Look them up. Good. I think there's someone who's also good. Well, if we're talking here to entry, you want to look at Anchor FM. If you're just getting started, it might be the way to get started, because you can use your mic on and go there, so easy. Okay. This is not really a question, but it's my non-traditional. I had access to create preset, but Adobe Audition is better. Audition for meetings, I absolutely love it. My best video or audio podcasts. Joe Rogan moves his audience to what do you think? What's the keep on. I'm just looking at my producer. But keep on going longer. As long as if you do want to kick out at any point, shout in. Well, but it's keep on going as long as you guys are. This question is it better to audio podcast? What about Rogan Movify? Well, I think it's no doubt that one of the best discovery platforms for podcasters that exists presently. And I think Joe Rogan has built a lot of his audience on YouTube, and thanks to YouTube. Obviously, he's done other things as well. But yeah, I think YouTube is fantastic. I think if you're going to podcast, why not stick it on YouTube? Why not find a way to get it on YouTube? Even if it's audio only, you need to get that podcast on YouTube because that's a great discovery platform. But if you can do the video thing as well, even better. What do I think of Anchor? Just mentioned it. Great for beginners, definitely. Probably not geared up to the pros necessarily, but that might change with the Spotify relationship. SoundCloud's all right, but again, it wouldn't be my first choice. So what would be the best platform in your opinion? Gosh, well, it really depends what you want. There are so many different platforms out there. You just have to use what works for you and your current situation. I mean, all the podcasts I host, they're on Spreaker, but that's my personal choice. I just like the way they do things. Right. I have a condenser mic, says Destiny, but it still picks up the air conditioning. I use Audacity to edit. So do you have any recipe or specific edits for getting rid of the extra noise? Yeah, so you definitely want to be using a noise gate. It's probably beyond the scope of this this presentation. I did mention noise gate earlier on in this presentation. But yeah, look into noise gate. Again, if you go to my YouTube channel, I've got lots of stuff on noise gates there and how to set them up. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up in another couple of minutes. I'm just going to look through and see if any other question pops out at me. Yeah, it's mainly just comments, so I think we're looking good here. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see a question mark there. Would you recommend something like the Elgato Wave 3 mic for podcasting, or do you think that's more for the gaming community? I think that Elgato, well, it's in their name, Elgato Gaming. They generally design things for the gaming community, but I think you totally could use it for podcasting. It's a USB-based microphone. Its USP, if you like, is the fact that it has really cool integration with Elgato Stream Deck, and you can control things remotely. So it's really, I think it's more for streamers, live streamers, and gamers, and potentially YouTubers, but you could use it for podcasting. And actually, the folks that make the capsule inside the microphone are Lewitt Audio, and they're based in Austria, and they're an awesome company. So yes, Elgato Wave 3 gets a thumbs up from me. And I think on that note, SysG official best laptop for audio video editing. Oh my goodness, don't get me started on that, because that's a different conversation. Whatever works for you. The 16-inch Mac will do it for those of you who love that friendly, cuddly Mac ecosystem. Otherwise, go and get yourself something brilliant. I've been Mike from Music Radio Creative. You can go and check out the channel there, youtube.com/Music Radio Creative. Really enjoyed being here. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, weekend, or month, or year, or whatever you're doing. And goodbye.